The ship called Odyssey moved quietly through the blackness of space. Its engines hummed with a low, steady power. For 2 years, the crew had been traveling to this distant star system. They were answering a call. Not a call of words, but of numbers. A complex, repeating pattern of mathematical signals had been heard on Earth. It was an invitation. Inside the ship, Captain Day sat in his chair on the bridge. He was a man who had seen many things, but his face was calm. He watched the main screen where a beautiful blue and green planet grew larger. This was the home of the ones who sent the signal. They called themselves the Galactians. All systems are ready for the landing sequence, a crewman said. Day simply nodded. Proceed. Nearby, a young man named Jin worked at his communication station. His job was to listen and to talk. He had spent months studying the Galactian number language. He was excited, but he was also nervous. This was first contact. This was history. A woman named Hana stood next to Jin. She was a xenolinguist, an expert in understanding languages that were not human. She did not just study words. She studied meaning and feeling and the way a species communicates who they are. She watched the planet with sharp, intelligent eyes. Their signal is clean, Jin said. Perfect. It's like a song made of pure math. Too perfect, maybe, Hana replied softly. I wonder what they are like when they are not being perfect. The Odyssey landed in a designated area on the edge of a great city. The city was stunning. Buildings swept up into the sky like graceful shells. They were white and silver, and they seemed to glow with their own soft light. There were no sharp corners, no loud noises. Everything was smooth and quiet and peaceful. The human crew stepped out of their ship. The air was fresh and clean. Waiting for them were the Galactians. They were tall and slender, with long limbs and large dark eyes that held a soft light. Their skin was a pale silver gray. They were beautiful, like statues come to life. They did not speak. They did not move their mouths. Instead, a voice appeared in the mind of each human. It was clear and calm. It felt like a gentle thought that was not your own. Welcome, travelers from Earth. We are pleased you have come. Please follow us. Captain Day took a small step forward. We thank you for your invitation, he said out loud. The moment his voice broke the quiet air, the lead Galactian envoy flinched. It was a small, quick movement, but everyone saw it. The Galactian's serene face tightened for a second. The mental voice that replied was still polite, but it now had a thin layer of strain. Your vocal speech is not necessary. It is a harsh sound. Please, we can communicate this way. It is more efficient. Day looked at Hana and Jin. Hana gave a small, careful nod. Of course, Day thought back, trying to project his words mentally. It felt strange, like shouting in a library. They were led into the city. The streets were clean and empty. Other Galactians watched them from a distance. Their faces showed no emotion, but they always kept many steps away from the human group. Jin tried to take it all in. He looked at the flowing buildings. He saw vehicles that moved without any sound. He was full of questions. He was a curious person by nature. His mind was always working, always asking how and why. He looked at a particular building that had shifting colors on its surface. How does that work? He wondered silently to himself. In his mind, he started guessing. Maybe it was some kind of liquid crystal. Maybe it used light pipes. He remembered a science project he did as a boy, with a prism and a light. The memory flashed quickly through his head. He did not notice that he had walked a little closer to one of the Galactian guides. The alien suddenly stopped walking. It turned its head slowly towards Jin. Its large eyes were wide. The calm in its mind was gone, replaced by a flicker of something else. Something like pain. You are... Very loud the thought came, directed only at Jin. It was not angry. It was pained. Jin was confused. I'm sorry. I didn't say anything. He had spoken aloud this time. The Galactian took a full step back. The other Galactians also seemed to grow more tense. The peaceful feeling was gone. The lead envoy's mental voice swept over the group, firmer now. The external sound is one disturbance. The internal noise is another. Please, you must try to quiet your minds. Hana's eyes narrowed. This was the key. It wasn't just their voices. It was their thoughts. But how could you quiet a mind? A mind was supposed to think. They were taken to a meeting room. It was a round room with soft, comfortable seats. The Galactians sat on one side, the humans on the other. The distance between them was like a wide river. The meeting began. The Galactians explained their culture through their perfect telepathy. They had no wars. They had no crime. They shared all knowledge instantly from mind to mind. It was a utopia of pure thought. Jin tried his best to focus on only one thing at a time. He tried to make his mind a clean, straight line, but it was impossible. When the Galatian talked about their energy source, Jin's mind jumped to the power needs of the Odyssey. He wondered if they could trade for it. He thought about his mother back on Earth. He hoped she was watching this on the newsfeed. A song he heard yesterday started playing in the back of his head. His mind was a busy, messy, lively place. He saw the Galatian speaking to him pause. The alien's brow was slightly furrowed, as if he had a headache. Hana watched all of this closely. She saw how the Galatians valued order and silence. She saw how they reacted to the unpredictable nature of the humans. They were not being unfriendly. They were being careful, like someone walking through a room full of broken glass. After the meeting, they were given small, flat tablets. For communication, the envoy explained mentally. It will be easier for us if you use these. The act of forming words in your mind to speak to us is difficult to filter. Captain Day took the tablet. He felt a heavy disappointment. They had traveled so far to meet another species, and now they were being told not to speak and to try not to think too much. It felt less like a first contact and more like being put in a cage for being too noisy. That night, back in their assigned quarters on the Odyssey, the three of them talked. This is not what I expected, Jin said, his shoulders slumped. I feel like I'm offending them just by existing. It's not you, Jin, Hana said. It's what we are. Their telepathy must be incredibly sensitive. They don't just hear the thoughts we want to send. They hear everything. The background noise of our minds. Background noise? Day asked. Think of your mind like a room, Hana explained. When a Galatian listens, they only hear the one person speaking clearly in the middle of the room. When they listen to one of us, it's like they're hearing that person, plus the radio playing, plus someone typing on a computer, plus 5 other people having conversations all at once. It's chaos for them. Captain Day looked out the window at the silent, glowing city. It was beautiful, but it felt cold. So they dread us, he said quietly. Not because we are violent or because we are primitive. They dread us because our thoughts won't shut up. The 3 humans sat in silence, the weight of this strange truth settling upon them. They were ambassadors of the noisiest species in the galaxy, and their greatest asset, their active, creative, uncontrollable minds, was seen as a flaw. The welcome had been silent, but the message was loud and clear. They were different, and in this quiet, orderly place, different was dangerous. The silence in the human quarters was heavy. It was the second day on the Galatian world, and the excitement of first contact had been replaced by a tense caution. Captain Day had given strict orders. They were to use the text tablets for all communication outside the ship. They were to keep their spoken words to a minimum. And they were to try as much as possible to keep their minds calm. It was the last part that was impossible. Jin felt the pressure the most. The incident from the day before played over in his head. He replayed the Galatian's pained expression, the words, "You are very loud," echoing in his memory. He sat at his station on the Odyssey, staring at the data streams from the planet. He was supposed to be analyzing their communication networks, but his mind kept wandering. He thought about the strange flowing architecture. He wondered how the Galatians had achieved such a peaceful society. A part of him was a little jealous. His own mind never felt peaceful. It was always buzzing with ideas, questions, and fragments of songs. Hana noticed his tension. She came and sat next to him. "You can't force it, Jin," she said, her voice soft. "Trying to stop your mind from thinking is like trying to stop your heart from beating. It's what it does. But it's causing problems," Jin replied, frustration in his voice. "I feel like I'm carrying a weapon I don't know how to holster." "That's a good way to put it," Hana said. "We need to understand this weapon. We need to know exactly what they're hearing." Their opportunity came later that day. The Galatians had arranged a tour of one of their science facilities. It was a gesture of goodwill, an offer to share knowledge. The humans were grateful but also wary. They walked in a tight group, their text tablets held ready. Day considered this. It was a weapon, of course, but it was also a shield. It was a way to say, "You will respect our space," without firing a single laser. "Build it," Day said. "Make 3 prototypes. For you, me, and Hana." While Jin worked in engineering, Hana continued her research. She studied the few text-based communications they had received from the Galatian High Council. The messages were cold and formal. They spoke of containment and public safety. They referred to the human consciousness as a cognitive hazard. Hana realized something crucial. The Galatians were not just physically pained by humans. They were afraid. Their entire society was built on a foundation of silent, perfect telepathy. They had no concept of privacy, of lies, of internal conflict. A human mind, with its secret thoughts and chaotic feelings, was more than just an annoyance. It was a threat to their very way of life. It was a virus that could infect their perfect silence. A few days later, a new message arrived on their tablets. It was not from the Science Council. It was from the Galatian High Council itself. They were summoning Captain Day and his senior staff to a hearing. The purpose was to decide the permanent fate of the Odyssey and its crew. The message was clear. The likely outcome was permanent internment. They would never see Earth again. The day of the hearing arrived. Jean had finished the 3 devices. They were small silver discs that clipped onto their uniforms. They hummed with a faint, almost imperceptible vibration. "Remember," Jin said, his hand hovering over the activation switch on his own device. "It doesn't stop our thoughts. It just surrounds us with a blanket of our own noise." "Let's hope it's a very thick blanket," Hana said, her face serious. They left the Odyssey and were met by a large escort of Galatians. The aliens kept a wider distance than ever before. The walk to the council chamber was long and silent. The beautiful city now felt like a beautiful prison. The council chamber was a vast circular room under a domed ceiling that showed the planet's pale sky. The Galatian High Council sat on a raised platform, their silver faces impassive. There were no chairs for the humans. They were meant to stand in the center like defendants on trial. The head of the council, an older Galatian with a more pronounced presence in the mind, began. Its mental voice filled the room, calm and absolute. "Captain Day, your presence here has been a disruption. The nature of your species is a danger to the Galatian people. Your mind creates a psychic disturbance that causes physical and mental harm. We cannot allow you to leave. To do so would be to unleash a plague upon the galaxy. You and your crew will be relocated to a secure facility. Your ship will be dismantled. This is not a punishment. It is a quarantine." Captain Day stood tall. He did not reach for his text tablet. He spoke aloud, his voice echoing in the silent chamber. "We did not come here to cause harm. We came in peace." The Galatians on the council flinched at the sound. The head counselor's mental voice sharpened. "Your peace is noise. Your thoughts are violence. There is no discussion. The decision is made." Day looked at Hana, then at Jin. He gave a single small nod. Together, the 3 humans reached to their chests and activated the devices. There was no visible light, no audible sound, but the effect was immediate and profound. The head counselor, who had been projecting its thoughts with such power, suddenly staggered. It did not fall, but its hands gripped the edge of its platform. Its eyes lost their focus. The other council members reacted with shock. They looked at each other, their faces for the first time showing clear, unmistakable confusion and panic. The perfect silent network of their telepathy had been severed. The constant, gentle hum of their shared thoughts was gone, replaced by a roaring, impenetrable static. They were blind. They were deaf in their own minds. They were utterly, terrifyingly alone. The humans stood in the center of the chaos they had created. They did not move. They did not speak. They simply waited. The head counselor finally looked at them, its gaze no longer one of superiority but of sheer primal fear. It was the fear of the unknown. It was the fear of silence, but a silence filled with a terrible roaring nothingness. For the first time, the Galatians were experiencing what it was like to be cut off from everything. And they were learning that the humans, who lived their entire lives inside this kind of mental isolation, were far, far stronger than they had ever imagined. The silence in the council chamber was not a quiet one. It was a heavy, thick silence, filled with the psychic roar of the human devices. For the Galatians, it was a nightmare. Their world was built on the constant, gentle flow of thought. It was how they worked, how they lived, how they were. Now that flow was gone, replaced by a wall of painful, meaningless noise. The council members were in disarray. Some stood frozen, their hands pressed to their heads as if they could push the static out. Others looked around the room, their large eyes wide with a fear they had never known. They were trying to reach each other with their minds, but they could not hear anything through the storm. They were alone inside their own skulls. It was the most terrifying thing they had ever experienced. Captain Day watched them. He saw their panic. He saw their fear. He felt no joy in it. This was not a victory. It was a demonstration. He waited a full minute, letting them feel the full weight of the isolation. Then he looked at Jin and gave another small nod. Together, the three humans deactivated their devices. The effect was as shocking as when they had turned them on. The roaring static vanished instantly. The clean, quiet space of their telepathic network rushed back in. The relief on the Galatians' faces was physical. They swayed on their feet, grasping the return of their shared consciousness like a drowning person grasps air. The head counselor slowly straightened up. Its usual calm was shattered. It looked at the three humans standing calmly in the center of the room. The fear in its eyes was now mixed with something new, a deep, trembling awe. Captain Day spoke. His voice was calm and firm in the newly restored silence. "You see now," he said, "we did not come to harm you, but we will not be imprisoned for what we are. We are not a plague. We are not a sickness." He took a single step forward. The Galatians did not flinch. They were too stunned. "Our minds are not weak because they are noisy," Day continued. "They are strong because they can live within the chaos. We do not need a network of thoughts to survive. Each of us is an island, whole and complete. We can be alone with ourselves. That is our strength." Hana spoke next, her voice clear and intelligent. "You see us as a source of painful static, but that static is the sound of our creativity. It is the sound of our individuality. It is the reason we build ships to cross the stars, while you built a perfect city and stayed in one place. Our noise is our engine." Jin said nothing. He simply stood, his device clipped to his uniform. He was the one who had built the wall of sound. He was the one who had turned their greatest weakness into a shield. His quiet presence was a powerful message. The head counselor was silent for a long time. It looked at the other council members. A silent conversation passed between them, faster than any human speech. This time the humans could only watch and wait. They could not hear the debate happening in the quiet space of the Galatian minds. Finally, the head counselor looked back at Captain Day. Its mental voice, when it came, was different. The cold authority was gone. It was slower, more thoughtful, and held a note of deep respect. "You have shown us something we did not believe was possible," it thought projected. "You have shown us that there is strength in the chaos. You have shown us that a mind can be whole even when it is alone. We did not understand." The counselor seemed to struggle with the concept. "Your device, it does not attack, it creates a space. A silence for you and for us. It is a shield," Day said. "It is a way for us to exist near you without causing you pain. It is a tool for peace, not for war." Another long silence filled the room as the Galatians considered this. The idea of a tool was familiar to them. The idea of a shield was logical. They were beginning to see the humans not as wild animals, but as a different kind of people. A people who solved problems. "We see now that our decision was made in fear," the counselor admitted. "Fear of the unknown, fear of your difference. To imprison you would be an act of aggression, and we now understand that your response to aggression would be formidable." The counselor stood up from its seat. It was a gesture of respect. "You are free to go. You are free to leave our world and continue your journey. We will not stop you." A wave of relief washed over the human crew. They had won. They were free. But Captain Day was not finished. He knew that just leaving would solve nothing. The galaxy was full of telepathic species. This problem would happen again. "We do not wish to simply leave as a threat in your memory," Day said. "We came here to meet you, to learn from you. We would like to offer you something. A gift," he gestured to Jin. "We will give you the designs for the damping device. Your scientists can study it. You can build your own versions. This way, if another species like us ever comes to your world, you will have a way to interact with them safely. You will not need to fear them." The offer stunned the Galatians. It was an act of incredible generosity. It was an offer of knowledge. It was a bridge. The head counselor bowed its head deeply. "We accept your gift, and we offer one in return. We will share with you our star charts, the safe paths through this region of space, the locations of other worlds. We see now that the galaxy is a wider, noisier and more amazing place than we knew, and we see that humanity has a place in it. The meeting ended not with a verdict but with an agreement. The humans were no longer prisoners. They were not even just visitors. They had become something new. They were the first ambassadors from the noisy, chaotic, and fiercely independent human race to the silent, united galaxies of the mind. As they walked back to the Odyssey, the Galatians who escorted them did not keep their distance. They walked alongside them. They were still careful, but there was no fear in their eyes. There was curiosity. Jin looked at the glowing city around them. It was still beautiful, but it no longer felt cold. He understood it now. He understood them. Hana smiled. "We did more than just save ourselves," she said today. "We changed the story. We're not the dreaded noisy monsters anymore." Captain Day looked up at the sky, where their ship was waiting to take them back to the stars. "No," he said. "Now we are the ones who mastered the noise. And that is a story that will travel far." The air on the Odyssey was light. It felt like home again. The fear and tension of the past days were gone. The crew moved with a new energy. They were not just survivors. They were pioneers who had faced a great challenge and had won. Preparations for departure began. Fuel was checked. Systems were tested. But there was a new activity now. A team of Galatian scientists, looking slightly nervous but determined, came aboard. They were led by the same scientist who had collapsed days before. Its name, they learned through a text tablet, was Elrin. Jin met them in the engineering bay. He held a data chip in his hand. On it were the complete designs for the psychic white noise generator. Elrin looked at Jin. There was no fear in its large eyes now. There was a deep curiosity. It typed on its own tablet and showed the screen to Jin. "We wish to understand. How did you conceive of this?" Jin thought for a moment. How could he explain it? He pointed to his own head. "My mind is always making noise," he said. "It is a problem for you. So I thought, if I cannot stop the noise, maybe I can control it. I can use it. Like you use a bright light to see in the dark, I used our noise to create a shadow, a quiet space for you." Elrin listened, then typed again. "Your problem became your solution. This is a new way of thinking for us. We eliminate problems. We do not use them." "Sometimes the problem is not really a problem," Jin said. "It is just a thing you have not found a use for yet." He handed the data chip to Elrin. The Galatian took it with a slow, graceful hand. It was a moment of great significance. It was not just a transfer of technology. It was a sharing of philosophy. The humans were giving the Galatians a tool built from chaos to protect their order. Meanwhile, Captain Day and Hana were in the command center with the Galatian head counselor. A large crystalline data orb was placed on a table between them. It glowed with a soft inner light. "These are the star charts," the counselor thought projected. "The safe paths between the stars. The locations of 17 other worlds with intelligent life. We have had limited contact. They are all like us. Silent. You are the first of your kind we have ever encountered." Hana looked at the data orb with wonder. It was a key to the galaxy. It was worth more than any treasure. "Thank you," Captain Day said. "This is a generous gift." "It is a necessary one," the counselor replied. "You are leaving our world, but you will not be silent. Your story will travel. The other species will hear of the noisy ones from the blue world.
They may also be afraid.
This will help you find those who are ready, and it will help you avoid those who are not." The message was clear. The galaxy was not entirely friendly. But now humanity had a map and a warning. The final hour came. The Odyssey was ready for launch. The human crew stood at the open ramp of their ship for a last goodbye. A group of Galatians had come to see them off. They stood at a respectful distance, but it was a distance of courtesy now, not fear. Elrin stepped forward. It looked at Jin. It did not use its tablet. Instead, it made a great effort. It focused its mind and sent a single, clean, simple thought directly to him. The thought was clear and carried a feeling of gratitude and respect. "Safe journeys, Jin." Jin felt the thought arrive in his mind. It was quiet and perfect. He smiled and nodded. "Goodbye, Elrin." It was a small thing, but it was a bridge. A Galatian had chosen to risk a moment of discomfort to communicate with a human in the way it valued most. It was a sign of true respect. The ramp closed. The Odyssey's engines hummed to life. The ship lifted smoothly from the landing pad and rose into the pale sky. On the bridge, the crew watched the silent, beautiful city shrink below them. It was a place they would never forget. Set a course for the edge of the system, Day ordered. Then we will decide our next destination. As the ship broke through the atmosphere and into the blackness of space, Jin looked at his scanner. He saw the Galactian communication networks, complex and beautiful. He saw the signal they had first followed to get here, the song of pure mathematics. It was still broadcasting, but now something was different. A new, much simpler signal was being broadcast alongside it. It was not a song. It was a pattern, a single repeated symbol. Hana saw it too. She analyzed it quickly. "It's a warning," she said, her voice filled with a strange awe. "And a classification." "What does it say?" Day asked. Hana translated the simple symbol. "It is a Galactian glyph. It means the shielded ones." They were silent for a moment, understanding the meaning. They were no longer the dreaded noisy ones. They were the shielded ones. A species that had faced its own nature and mastered it. A species that could not be silenced but could choose to create silence for others. A species that was now a part of the galactic community on their own terms. Jin leaned back in his chair. He looked out at the endless stars. His mind, as always, was busy. It was thinking about the new star charts. It was thinking about the other worlds they might visit. It was humming a little tune. It was a chaotic, messy, wonderful place, but now he knew it was not a weakness. It was their strength. The great silence of the galaxy was not empty. It was full of life. And now it had a new sound. It was not the sound of fear or pain. It was the sound of a human thought, finally free to roam the stars. The Odyssey flew on, a small ship carrying its crew of noisy, chaotic, and hopeful humans into the vast and waiting universe. They were not dreaded. They were understood. And in a universe of silent minds, that was the greatest victory of all. The science facility was even more impressive than the city. There were no buttons or screens. The Galactian scientists stood before intricate models of molecules and star systems that glowed in the air, manipulating them with subtle gestures and, the humans assumed, pure thought. The air hummed with silent, efficient collaboration. Jin was fascinated. He saw a device that seemed to be creating a miniature star, a contained ball of swirling plasma. His engineering mind kicked into gear. He forgot about being quiet. He forgot about the rules. How's that containment field working? The energy output must be incredible. What material could withstand that heat? It reminds me of that old movie with the fusion reactor, the one with the blue light. I should ask them. No, I can't ask. Use the tablet. But how do I even phrase the question? The math would be so complex. I wonder what they eat for lunch. Do they even eat? Their bodies are so thin. Maybe they photosynthesize like plants. That would be. He was standing closer to a Galactian scientist than he realized. He was so lost in his own racing thoughts that he didn't notice the scientist had frozen. The glowing star model flickered. The Galactian turned its head. Its large luminous eyes were wide with shock and pain. It brought its long-fingered hands up to the sides of its head. Then it screamed, but no sound came from its mouth. Instead, a raw, unfiltered blast of pure psychic agony erupted directly into the minds of every human in the room. It was not a word. It was a feeling. A shattering, painful static. Silence!
The static.
It burns. The mental scream was so powerful it was physical. Jin stumbled back as if pushed. Hana gasped, clutching her own head. Captain Day grunted, his face hardening as he fought against the wave of alien pain. The Galactian scientist collapsed to its knees, its body trembling. The other Galactians in the room moved with a sudden, synchronized urgency. Two of them rushed to their fallen colleague, their minds projecting a wave of calm, soothing thoughts towards it. The others moved between the humans and the scientist, their usual serene faces now etched with a mixture of fear and anger. The lead envoy from the day before approached Captain Day. Its mental voice, when it came, was cold and sharp, stripped of all previous politeness. You have harmed one of us. Your mind is a weapon of chaos. This tour is over. You will return to your ship immediately. You will not leave. The walk back to the Odyssey was a silent, shameful parade. The humans were escorted by a full squad of Galactians who maintained a wide perimeter around them. The message was clear. They were dangerous. They were contaminated. Back inside the safety of their ship, the crew gathered in the common room. The mood was grim. What in the world was that? One of the engineers asked, her face pale. It felt like my brain was on fire for a second. It was his brain that was on fire, Hannah said, her voice quiet but intense. She looked at Jin, who was sitting with his head in his hands. Jin, look at me. This was not your fault, it was, Jin mumbled. I was thinking too loud. I didn't control it. That's just it, Hannah said, standing up. You can't control it. Don't you see? That's the heart of it. She turned to address the whole room. We've been assuming that our thoughts are like their thoughts. That when we think I am hungry, they hear I am hungry. But we were wrong. Captain Day crossed his arms. Explain, Hannah. Think about what the scientist screamed, she said. It didn't scream, your questions are too loud. It screamed the static. It screamed that it burns. This isn't about the content of our thoughts. It's about the noise. She walked over to a computer terminal and pulled up a simple diagram of a human brain. Our brains are never quiet. Even when we sleep, they are active. We have a constant stream of consciousness, yes, but underneath that is an ocean of subconscious activity. Memories firing, senses processing, body functions regulating, random connections being made. This is the background processing of being human. We are completely unaware of most of it. It's the mental equivalent of a computer's cooling fan. We never notice it. She pointed towards the window at the Galactian city. But they do. Their telepathy is so refined, so sensitive that they don't just hear the song of our conscious mind. They hear the entire orchestra warming up, coughing, dropping their instruments, and rustling their sheet music all at the same time. They hear the hum of the lights and the air conditioning. They hear everything. A slow understanding dawned on the crew. So when Jin was looking at that machine, Captain Day said, he wasn't just sending one clean thought. He was sending a storm. Exactly, Hannah said. He was sending his focused curiosity, plus his memory of a movie, plus a random question about their biology, plus a million little neurological processes that keep his heart beating and his lungs breathing. To the Galactian, it wasn't a conversation. It was a psychic assault, a blast of pure, undiluted chaos. Jin finally looked up, his eyes haunted. So we are chaos to them. We are walking, talking sources of painful interference, Hannah confirmed. Our greatest strength, our complex, layered, endlessly creative minds, is a terrifying, painful weapon in their world. Captain Day looked around at his crew. He saw fear and confusion on their faces. He saw Jin's guilt. He saw Hannah's fierce intelligence. He made a decision. Then we need to understand this weapon better, he said, his voice firm. Hannah, I want you to lead a research team. Analyze everything from the incident. Every sensor reading, every bioscan we have of the Galactians. I want to know the exact nature of this static. He turned to Jin. And you, Jin. I need your engineering mind. Don't be ashamed of it, use it. If our noise is a problem, I want you to start thinking about solutions. Not how to be quiet. We can't do that. But maybe how to control the noise, or how to use it. The crew dispersed, moving with a new sense of purpose. The initial dread was still there, the fear of being trapped on this beautiful, silent world. But now it was mixed with a spark of defiance. They were not just noisy animals. They were humans, and if their nature was the problem, then they would find a human solution. Jin went back to his station, his mind already racing again. But this time it was focused. He wasn't just thinking random thoughts. He was designing. He was calculating. He was thinking about frequencies and dampeners and shields. The very noise that had caused the problem was now being harnessed to find an answer. Hannah sat with her team, poring over the data. She knew the Galactians saw them as primitive, as uncontrollable, but she saw something else. The Galactians lived in a world of perfect shared thought. They had no secrets, no lies, no private inner worlds. Their society was a silent, beautiful library. Humanity, she realized, was the opposite. They were a bustling, noisy, messy marketplace of ideas. It was loud and chaotic and sometimes painful, but it was also where new things were born. It was where creativity lived. The Galactians had perfected silence, but humanity had mastered noise. And in a universe that was mostly silent, maybe noise was the most powerful thing of all. The mood on the Odyssey had shifted from shock to a quiet, determined resolve. They were prisoners, but they were not defeated. Captain Day's orders had given them a mission. They had to understand their own minds, and they had to find a way to survive in a world that saw them as monsters. Hannah and her team worked day and night. They reviewed the biological scans taken during the incident, They found something fascinating. When the Galactian scientist had collapsed, its brain activity had spiked in a specific region, a part of the brain humans associated with processing overwhelming sensory input, like blinding light or deafening sound. It's not that they're weak, Hana explained to Day and Jin in the ship's meeting room. Their telepathy is just too good. It's like they have perfect hearing, and we are constantly standing next to them, clanging two pots together. They can't filter it out. It's physically painful for them. Jin nodded, his eyes tired but focused. He had been working on his own project. So, if we are a source of noise, the simplest solution is to put up a wall, a shield. But we can't stop our brains from making noise. Right, Hana said. But what if we could control the noise? Or, what if we could use it? That was the idea that had taken root in Jin's mind. He called it the psychic white noise generator. It was a modification of their standard personal communicators. The device wouldn't try to quiet the human mind. Instead, it would listen to the brain's natural, chaotic output, the background static, and amplify it. Then it would broadcast that static outwards in a steady, powerful wave. Think of it like this, Jin said, showing them a schematic on a screen. Right now, our noise leaks out in all directions, unpredictable and messy. It's like shouting in a crowded room. This device would take all our shouts and focus them into a single, constant, loud tone, a wall of sound. Captain Day studied the schematic. So you're not reducing the noise. You're making it louder and more organized. Exactly, Jin said. For the Galactians, trying to read our minds through this would be like trying to hear a whisper in the middle of a hurricane. It would create a bubble around us. A safe space. For them and for us.